Welcome to Season 7 of ISRA League's Grand Touring Championship. This is Race 1, 2 hours of Spa. It's brought to you by the Z1 Simwheel LCD display. This LCD display is the prize for the Clean Driver Award. The award winner will be the person who drives the most races with 0 instant points accumulated throughout the season. And welcome to everyone to Season 7. I'm Daniel Quaroni. With me are Anthony Muniz.
Great to be back with you guys.
Brian Carey.
Great to see you guys again.
And tonight we have GTC League admin Daniel Gralti.
Oh, it's good to be with you guys tonight.
We've got a new roundup of cars for this season. We are starting in the first class with the Daytona Prototypes. Following that in speed are the 4 GTs, and then we have the brand new Cadillac CTS-V. And we're going to look in just a moment at the track map, and Brian will take us around Spa.
Alright, well before the track map comes up here, I just want to say that Spa is probably the best circuit that we race on all year. It's long, it's fast corners, slow corners, tons of elevation changes, real pleasure to drive as we see the map up here right now. Turn 1 La Source is actually the last corner on the track, as we actually, the start finish line will be down around where 2 is on the run down to Eau Rouge and Rayon. Extreme elevation changes, fantastic challenge to drive in real life and also in the sim. Favorite corner probably in the world. We'll see it on board during the race. It's really fantastic. Lake Home, a lot of passing opportunities through there. Lots of sweepers through the back. Pouan, Lefagna, Stavelo, Blanchimont, an extremely challenging corner to get right. And then a lot of action down into that tight chicane there towards the end of the lap in the pit entrance. So really looking forward to this track. It's a real fantastic driving experience.
All right, well, pole sitter for DPs is Colin McLean with a 2-minute, 10-second .9, and we got Timothy Stoll next to him. Row 2, Dana Gralti, John Kuzland, then Carlos Passos, Kevin Savoy, then Russell Cow, Brian Carey, and then Anthony Muniz and Carl Moonbauer, rounding out the top 10.
And for the 4 GTs, we have Chris Dameron Jr. on pole with a 2-minute 19.2, John Middleton right beside him with a 19.7, James Mines, Mike Kelly, Clint Vigas rounding out the top 5, with Marty Jeffries, Patrick Spence, Kenny Coughlin, Daniel Peroni, and Matthew Voigt rounding out the top 10.
And then in the Cadillacs, Wyatt Foster was on pole with a 220.8, with Joe Jr., Todd Carver, Lauren Bateman, Ricardo Manchuca, James Cullen, Mark Payne, Julio Palacio, Don Hunter, and Evgeny Guerrero running out the top 10. And
thank you very much. Just finishing it up as we have gone green, and looks like a nice clean start as the Daytona Prototypes head through Eau Rouge, although that looks like Timothy Stoll going very wide. And rejoining the track.
Colin McLean got a massive jump on the rest of the field as they took the green flag, and it's got himself a nice lead.
And actually, Stoll going off gave elevated Gralti there to second position. As we're on board now on the new Cadillac with Lauren Bateman, and he has just been passed there by Mark Payne.
Mark Payne being one of the top drivers last year in the LMP class. He's still running the number 92 car. Sorry, not the 92 car. Oh, geez, I forget what number he is already.
42.
But anyways, Mark Payne. 42, thank you. No, that's... anyways.
46.
Just start throwing random numbers at the 46 car, but anyways, he's a 6'10". He'll be running the Cadillac this year, same basic paint scheme as he had before. Lauren Bateman's actually one of the newer drivers in the series as we ride on board with him.
And switching to show you the onboard from Carlos Passos for a moment, as he's trailing right behind Mike Kelly.
Or Timothy Stoll.
I'm sorry, Timothy Stoll. I saw the Sobe and just thought Kelly, because when I see Sobe when I'm racing, it's Kelly.
Yeah, one of the things I just want to point out too is because a lot of these drivers are the same that we had last year, very few of them are actually driving the same cars as they did last year, because 2 of the classes are new. A lot of the 4 GT drivers have moved out of the Cadillac or to the Daytona Prototype. So we'll do our best in the first race. We're going to be a little bit rusty. We're going to miss some of these, but number 58, Carlos Passos, in the Radicals Daytona Prototype. Luckily, the paint scheme looks very similar to his LMP of last year, so not a lot of trouble differentiating Carlos.
And then here's Brian Carey very late on the brakes going into a source, almost runs into the back of Russell Kyle. Looks like he's going to lose a spot to Kevin Savoy. That'll drop him down to 8th.
Just like to point out that as the driver there, I was just over 2 minutes into my first race in that car, so braking distance is still a little touchy, but luckily we all got out of that one okay.
And we're taking a look at some of the battles in the Cadillac field. This is Ryan Huff, and he is currently battling with, and that is Jeremy Burst making a bit of contact and heading towards the pits. Missed who it was he made contact with, but looks like he avoided much damage.
And one of the things you'll notice is here too, that's he's actually in the Turn 1 Heroes racing team. Mm-hmm. Most of their cars last year were sponsored in some fashion by the Chevron. This year to be the Sobe drinks. So those Sobe cars are all the Turn 1 Heroes cars, as we see James Cullen there on the right in the 56 going side by side with Mark Payne in the 46.
Yep, and James Cullen, also a new member to the Turn 1 Heroes Racing group, and really there's been quite a few new racing teams or groups that have sprung up this season, so it's good to see a lot of different team paint jobs out there.
And James Cullen, last year's Ford GT champion, taking that right down to the wire in a very exciting Road Atlanta race, which is our last broadcast, just nipping Todd Carver for the title. So I'm looking for a new challenge this year, running the Cadillac. Now that was through the long left-hander known as Pouan. Very difficult in every car. The corner just seems to go on forever. So you have a tendency in all classes to want to drive really quickly into the car, but you really got to be patient, let the car settle, and get the maximum possible speed coming out of the corner. It's very challenging, hard on the tires, and very easy to make mistakes. Well, very easy to make mistakes anywhere on this course, but there in particular, you're really going to let the car do the work for you.
And speaking of mistakes, it looks like Mark Payne made one that cost him at least 2 spots there.
And we are back with Ryan Huff. Looks like he is chasing down Stephen Clark, and that is one of the Stephen Clark is one of the newer teams that I was talking about. They are running under the Can-Am Racing, and it has 3 members in it, and they're all driving Cadillacs. So you can see this is a good battle, and looks like he's got a teammate up there. I think that's John Rasudos. So teammates have qualified fairly similar. Ooh, and Ryan Huff going to look to go on the outside, going through the chicane. And he's going to shut the door coming out of the chicane. What a move! You don't see that very often, even by the pro drivers.
That was certainly a heck of a pass.
Yeah, in real life there, Lewis Hamilton found out the hard way that that's not a pass that you can typically make successfully, or if you do, then we'll be penalized severely. So very excellent pass to see there, and extremely clean too. And as we see, Anthony Muniz running wide there ahead of Chuck Chambliss in the Pouan corner, which I just mentioned previously is a very difficult corner to get right. As you can see, Anthony unfortunately going off a little bit of track there. Not too much damage to the car being done by that, because there's a lot of runoff, but position still lost. So.
Yeah, I was just about to point out, luckily for Pouan, it's all concrete runoff, and the wall is very far away from it. So if you do take too much speed, you can just take the runoff and rejoin the track without taking any sort of damage. But you do lose lots of time.
Now, it's one of those corners there for racing enthusiasts that remember Spa from the 80s and 90s. Pouan corner, no concrete there, walls a little bit closer, and very minimal grass and a little bit of sand. So if you put a wheel off there, it was a one-way ticket to the barriers, and luckily that's not the case anymore, but it does make things a little bit easier as Muniz is trying to get that place back from Chuck Chambliss. It's really hard to see right now. Chambliss on the inside, just out of view. Muniz not able to take the apex there, so obviously Chambliss still on the inside, and I think, nope, there he is right there. Chambliss getting the better run off the corner, so Muniz will have to try again at a later point. As we come up to Eau Rouge, just want to point this out, you cannot see the top of this corner. You're entering this pretty much flat out, lifting, not even seeing where you're turning until about now. So you're going straight off, it looks like, to the right, but you actually have to start turning to the left before you can actually see anything at all, which makes it extremely difficult, as Chambliss unfortunately got a corner cutting penalty there as he went over the curbs. Had to slow down for a few seconds to give up the time that he gained, and allowed Muniz to go back to retake the place.
Now here's quite a great shot. We've got a nice train of Daytona prototypes. This is 3rd to 6th, and leading this group is Timothy Stoll in that 77 Daytona prototype. And then following behind, but trying to make his way up to the front of this group, is Kevin Savoy. He's running in 6th, trying to chase down Russell Cow just ahead of him.
I got Julio Palacio and Jeremy Burris doing battle here. Julio in the 91, Burris in the 85. Right behind Evgeny Gurernin in what appears to be an extremely dirty and rusty Cadillac, but that is just a clever, we'll call it the Russian paint job there. So
apparently that's how the cars look in Russia, according to him.
Yes, in Soviet Russia, car paints you. And that's the last time I'll make one of those jokes, I promise.
Russell Cow going a bit wide going through Blanchimont. I wonder if that's going to give... Oh, and yep, I was just about to wonder that. Kevin Savoy very late on the brakes going into the chicane. He's going to take the inside and then shut the door on Russell Cow, so that's going to elevate Kevin Savoy up to P5 in class.
And I talked at the beginning of the Z1 Sim Wheel Clean Driver Award. That little off, was it that Kevin made?
Russell.
That Russell made will count against him. He won't be able to score a point for this race towards that Clean Driver Award. And that's all it takes to disqualify you, is that one little off on one little corner like that.
I got to tell you right now, I don't remember I don't know the exact results on how this is going to shake out, but I'm going to take a stab here that at this track for 2 hours, no one's going to be coming out of this with that bonus point. It is just too hard a track for 2 hours in this type of racing to come out with your nose totally clean. And last year's winner, David Serrois, who is unfortunately not with us this year in this series, would probably be the best at doing that, and even he would have a very
I'm not even sure if he got. I'm not even sure if he got a point.
I think he did.
Did he manage a point? That's very impressive.
One or two people. David did, and then I think Chris Damron Jr. might have, but I don't remember.
I do not think Chris Damron Jr. After years of scoring this this race at the beginning of each season, I can tell you I have seen upwards of 120 incident points at this track from a driver who finished the race.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a very, for whatever reason, this is a very unforgiving track for 1Xs and the sort. I'd like to see that change a little bit in the future for my racing, but definitely does make this a challenge. Oh, and this is Matthew Voigt going very wide, and Daniel Quilroni just sneaking by there on the left side. Luckily avoids any contact, but Matthew Voigt is going to have to wait a very long time as the field goes by before he can safely rejoin.
And those marks on the track there were tire marks and not any other sort of marks that I'm sure would have been left, because that was a very hairy situation. Look at this, 4 cars basically within the same second of track, and any little mistake will... I mean, Timothy Stoll there at the front of the line. If he goes a little bit wide coming through La Source here, and we'll see what he does, sure, I'm sure he'll be fine. But, I mean, a little mistake there could cost him 3 positions down to Eau Rouge. But that wasn't the case. It's just so competitive this year in all the classes that you really have to be in your toes. And, I mean, mistake will be punished severely as far as places go anyways.
Yep. Now we're taking another look back at Ryan Huff in his Cadillac, and we can see that he's put another one of those Can-Am racing cars behind him. So that's moved him up 3 places since the start of the race, and looks like he's trying to get by Jerry Knitter now for the 14th position.
He is really pushing his way through the field here of Cadillacs.
Yeah, as we were mentioning about those 1Xs there in qualifying, Ryan Huff probably qualified a lot lower than he was expecting based on his speed here. And it could be down to traffic as well as getting those 1Xs, because in the race, if you get one, sure, I mean, unfortunately you're not going to win the clean driver award point for this race. However, in qualifying, it'll mean that if you get one of those 1Xs, it'll invalidate your lap. So, I mean, such a long lap, short period of time to qualify, traffic, and you only get a certain number of laps here. So a few of those, and Ryan possibly qualified, 5-10 positions below where he should. So makes for interesting racing for us as he works his way back to the field, chasing down Jerry Knitter in the we'll give Jerry the temporary award of major corporate oil sponsor that Colin had so rightly earned last year with his nicely colored Castrol car. But Jerry with the Mobile One, it looks very, very sharp, almost like a German touring car right now. DTM, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And Ryan getting another position there, getting by Jerry.
Yeah, like Brian pointed out in the just a second ago, I definitely think that, unfortunately for Ryan Huff, he qualified lower than he had should have. So he's definitely going to have to just fight his way back up to at least get to where he quote unquote should have qualified, and see if he can't race with guys that are maybe a bit more on pace to what he's running. And we look now at James Cullen in that 56 Cadillac, and he's chasing down his old sparring partner from last season, Todd Carver, in the number 40. As you can see, Todd gets a little squirrely coming out of Pujon.
And Carver's car, very reminiscent. Unfortunately, I don't remember the team that runs it, but they were running a Pontiac and now a Camaro in Grand Am.
I believe they still run it. Yeah, it was a very sharp-looking car.
Yeah.
The Stevenson team,
yes.
Stevenson Racing.
And actually, looking at all of these, since I never really get a chance to when I'm behind the wheel, we've got a lot of really great-looking cars this season.
There's our partner in crime there, first-time commentator Daniel Gralty in the number 10, chasing down race leader Colin McLean. And I believe Daniel Gralty had put up an extremely fast lap a couple of laps ago in his run to catch Colin, and this is going to be one heck of a battle, as it looks like he is all over him right now.
And 15 minutes in, we have already started to see some lapping going on, although I wouldn't be surprised to find out that Cadillac that they just lapped had taken some damage. Probably visited the pits.
I'm just looking at the timing and scoring here, and we've lost John Kuzlin somewhere. I don't know if he's not being scored or if he had an incident or whatnot, but I'm not seeing him in the top 10 anymore, so don't know if we can go down to the pits to find out what happened.
He's number 12th right now in Daytona Prototypes. He's down one lap from the leaders, so I didn't look to see if he had entered the pits, but he must have.
Again, also too, like, it looks like because everything's so close and competitive, he might even just had a spin, taking a few seconds to get back on the track. But I mean, that could drop you 10 places easily. So I mean, it might be just as simple as that. But if he's a lap down, more than likely he's visited the pits for probably some repairs. As it's way too early for the first pit stops for the Daytona Prototypes.
Yep.
And we also have Carl Mumbauer shown in the pits at the moment. And hopefully he'll be able to get back out, but he isn't clear yet. We'll look
also
on board, yes, from Tim McLeish, looking back at Matthew Voigt, who has rejoined after that spin that he had, but it's cost him a couple spots. He was running, I believe, 6th, and now he's down to 11th.
I just want to point out... go ahead.
It appears that John Kuzlin timing and scoring reset there, and he's actually in 5th place, battling with Russell Cow.
Okay, there we go.
Yep, that's what I was just about to point out. Looks like we just had a little glitch in the timing and scoring, and this is a very interesting position we're in right now. Looks like the front of the DP leaders have managed to catch up with the Cadillac. So now, not only does Colin McLean have to defend against Daniel Gralty, who is all over the back end of his car, he also has to try and get by the slower class Cadillacs as fast as possible.
Yeah, this is one of the things I want to point out too, because it's one of the main reasons for the car change this year. Is last year the LMP, being by far the fastest class, was by far the slowest in the straightaway, which made passing and lapping other cars a lot more difficult. This year, at least, there's a little bit more parity. The fastest cars are the fastest in the straightaways, being the Daytona Prototypes. A little easier to get through traffic. They're not getting held up as much in the corners, but it looks like the traffic has caused Daniel Gralti to get a run on the inside of Colin. Going into Blanchimont, it looks like this is going to be Gralti's corner. If Colin could stick it around the outside, I'd be extremely impressed. Oh, he's used the rumble strips, and I don't... What director? Come on, buddy. All right, well, we'll see how that turned out. I don't know, Daniel, if you remember how that attempt worked out for you, but...
Well, looking at the time scoring, it does look like Colin McLean's stayed ahead.
I can tell you, Colin managed to stay ahead of me there. He kept up enough momentum going wide there to be on the inside, braking for the bus stop.
Yeah, within the regulations, no slow up flags for running right in the Blanchimont there, although I'm sure if he had tried to keep that car on inside the white lines, that would have been Gralti's position, but no matter, race on, and still got an hour 42 left, so I mean, I'm sure there'll be much more we'll hear from those two.
And we're looking at Timothy Stoll as he gets a great run coming out of Eau Rouge as they head down the Kimmel Straight. He just drives right by John Cousin. That was, I think Cousin got held up a bit by that Cadillac, and that allowed Stoll to get by. But looks like Stoll might have had an off or something, because he's currently being shown down in P5. So, we've seen him up as high as 3rd so far this race. So he's dropped a couple spots, and he's going to try and fight his way back.
Also noticing too that during that battle between McLean and Gralti there, that Kevin Sawaz brought it back within under 2.5 seconds. He's sitting 2.4 behind the leader Colin Lane, so that could be a 3-horse race. Well, let's call it as it is. It is a 3-horse race right now.
Yeah.
In front, pretty much the top 3 under 3 seconds is nose to tail, as close as you can.
Yeah, so we've seen him back about 6th place, and he's definitely been on a massive charge to get within 3 seconds of the leader, because they had somewhat gapped the field from 3rd to 6th. We remember see that train of 4 cars, and now to see him up joining with the 2 leaders is quite impressive.
And also one thing I want to point out too, that Daniel's made some improvements to our director model, and the timing and scoring here, as you notice, there's actually the times, or the gaps at least anyway, are not rounded up to the nearest second. We're actually getting to the 100th of a second, which was used some of his computer programming witchcraft to make that happen for us this year, which is extremely impressive to see, and it makes for you following at home a little bit easier to see what those actual gaps are, especially in a close battle.
And I can certainly say that as a league, we offer a huge thank you to Dan for doing these. I don't know of any other league that's doing this, and I can say it's been a huge thing for us.
Well, thank you.
Yes, also, and no offense to the iRacing guys for the World Championship broadcast that you see there, because those are done live, and totally different thing, but considering, like I said, this is a private league, and Daniel does a lot of other things on top of it. So,
he does have a job. He goes to work every day, and he does all of this
got a lady,
in his spare time. Yep, so definitely
he's got 1,000 computers.
That protects him. Remember that we talked about that at the end of last season. That protects him for when the computers take over the world.
I'm not entirely sure that Daniel is not a computer himself, but we'll worry about that later.
Well, meanwhile, this is a good close battle between Mike Kelly and Marty Jeffrey. Is Kelly going to go on the right side, going to try and get him before they get down to Blanchimont? It's going to be close. Can Kelly close the door?
Nice.
Yep, and he will.
Now, Mike Kelly drove the LMP last year, which was basically planted to the ground. Not a lot of sliding going on from that car. You saw him coming around the second part of Stavelo there. He was all sorts of backwards and forwards, sideways, and I mean, that's quite the contrast in driving styles too. Probably not great for the tires and not great over the long run, but definitely entertaining for us to watch.
Yep.
Oh, and contact there. As let's see. So
I'm not sure who that Ford GT is because we're not getting that up.
Yeah, that's that the car that he made contact with, the Cadillac. That was Todd Carver. I'm not sure who that Ford GT was. Might have been Paul Schumann, but I cannot be positive on that.
That's Patrick Spence, new to this series. This year he was not with us last season, but very cleverly painted Ford GT there, like the Empty Keg Racing. That's a good name there. As they're back with the Evgeny Guerrinin, chasing down Jeremy Burris. And oh no, he didn't hit the wall. That's wow. That is some impressive saving.
Well, that rusty old Russian car apparently still. Tiger is still good on it and managed to, in a very impressive save. Normally if you see the car get loose and sliding around like that come out of Eau Rouge, it means game over, but impressive save there by Evgeny Guerrinin.
And he's charging back. So that was the number 40. As we said, Todd Carver.
Doesn't look like too much damage, at least that we can tell visually, and he's still, but he does seem to be a bit off pace.
Yeah,
I mean, that is
pace, yeah.
Julio Palacio driving around turn number 9 on the outside. So unfortunately for Todd Carver, looks like that's costing him time on the track.
Yeah, unfortunately, some of the most critical damage is to the wheels, and you won't see it a lot in the bodywork, whereas other guys, it look like their cars are half destroyed, but still running decently because the suspension is okay. And I mean, aerodynamics is less important for all these cars than it was previously with the LMP. The LMP was like an aero car through and through, but Corvette to some extent too. But these cars here, I mean, aero cars all the same. Daytona Prototype probably the most, but a little bent here and there, not that bad. But if your wheel's pointed in the wrong direction, you're not going anywhere. So,
yeah, unfortunately for Carver, the incident pushed him just past the pit entrance, so he had to do the full lap no matter what. I expect he'll probably pit at the end of this lap. It's within probably his pit window anyway. I'm sure he's planning on a 2-stopper.
Yeah, now that you mention the pit stops, the GT cars, that meaning the Ford GT and Cadillac, those guys are going to have to do 2 stops, and if they're cutting it close, possibly 3, if they mess up their fuel strategies. But the Daytona Prototypes, because they have such a large fuel capacity, they're only going to need to do 1 fuel stop. Later in the season, they will be limited, but at the time of this race, iRacing's the fuel limitation functionality wasn't working quite properly, so just 1 stop for the Daytona Prototypes, 2 for everyone else.
And because this race is so long too, the fact that the Daytona Prototypes, obviously they're called Daytona Prototypes because they are meant to run the Daytona 24 hours, and that's a 24-hour race. Having a massive fuel tank isn't a huge issue. Most of our races are in around the 75-minute range, give or take. So the car could easily do the race, well, not easily, but close enough to do the race on that. 2-hour race, on the other hand, stop definitely has to be made, so it wasn't that big of an issue for this run here.
As one of the few returners into the pits.
Yeah, we got James Mines in the Red Bull cars we can see on the screen there, as Todd Carver's obviously made his pit stop to repair the damage. But one of the few returning cars here, you'll recognize the Red Bull 84 there from last season. And John Kuzlin's CTC car, you can see there lapping Mark Payne. Really impressed with the paint scheme there. It reminds me of the old the Nissan prototypes back in the 80s. Ran Le Mans very successfully. The red, white, and blue there.
I believe there's a in the Grand Am series. I believe there is a team that runs livery very similar to that. I forget which team it is, but I'm pretty sure that that is kind of inspired by actual real life livery.
You can see the guys using every inch of the available grip that they can have outside of the track going through Blanchimont there. Now Blanchimont and a lot of these cars, now this is primarily, you'll see most people will be familiar with this for the yearly Formula 1 race they have here at Spa. And Blanchimont at Spa, even in the wet, is probably a flat out corner. It was last year in the LMPs, not so much the other cars here, but all the cars are having to feather the car and braking a little bit going through that corner in some cases. So Blanchimont is a very, very difficult corner along with Eau Rouge, and it's really a momentum corner too. Because it's a momentum corner, if you get it wrong on exit, you have to scrub off a little bit of speed. Very easy. You'll be seeing a lot of passes coming out of there, and you kind of saw that a little bit there. One of the cars ran wide, and the other car's got a huge run going into the chicane. Not enough to make the pass cleanly, but you'll see a lot of that here. And as we're on board with Dan Morera following Don Hunter in the Can-Am racing, is it 35? Yeah.
Yep.
So yes, he's anyways, him, Don Hunter, John Rizzutos, and Stephen Clark, all very similar paint schemes, so you really have to pay attention to the numbers in the cars.
And I think those paint schemes are identical except for the names. Wow, and just look at that Daytona Prototype just go flying by. I think that was Colin McLean putting a lap on the another slower class of getting Guerrero, but just crazy to watch them go by like that.
Yeah, I mean, Evenia really slowed up for him, but it gave Julio a chance to try to make the pass on the outside. Didn't quite come off, and we'll see if he's actually come to the... Nope, okay, so Julio is behind him right now. And as you can see, I'd mentioned the middle of the dash there is actually rear-facing camera, which is kind of an interesting feature of the new Cadillac that we have here. He's not watching DVDs right now or playing any PlayStation games. It's a very purposeful camera there, which really helps the rear view. They still have traditional mirrors in the car, but when you're in a tight racing situation, I mean, there's a lot of posts and roll cages and structures that make seeing the cars behind you rather difficult. So it's really helpful and something that would be helpful to see in all cars, I would suppose. But never mind that.
If you look at the back of those Cadillacs, the driver sits so low in those cars and that wing is so big and angled. I mean, you really can't see a whole lot out of that rear view mirror, so that camera really helps them see in the blind areas. And this is Kevin Savoy, and he has come up on the back of Daniel Gralti. This is for second place. You could just catch the Daytona Prototype of Colin McLean, who's still leading. He's in front, pulled a gap in front of these guys by about 2.5 seconds.
And if you want to talk about bad mirrors, Daytona Prototype is really poster boy for that. I don't know about you guys, but when I drive this car, I can barely see a thing behind me.
Yeah, well, you can see right on the back there. There's actually no rear view mirror because there's an engine there and a firewall. So just those little tiny mirrors that you see sticking out on the front. That's all you have in the Daytona Prototype.
Yeah, I mean, but in the Daytona Prototype, really, if you run fast enough, you don't have to worry about looking behind you because you'll just be passing people anyway, which fortunately isn't true of anyone in this class right now, myself included. So the sim racing, iRacing does present a couple other options to get a better view of what's going on behind you. A virtual television camera, if you will, that myself use just for the otherwise, like you say, in real life racing, at least you have kind of more situational awareness when it comes to sounds and where guys are on the track. I mean, it sounds kind of silly that you can feel where they are, but really, I mean, that's kind of what it boils down to. Where in sim racing, you don't quite have that level of immersion. I mean, pretty darn close, don't get me wrong, but I mean, it's really important to have as many visual cues as you can because you're not going to be able to hear or feel or in some cases smell when behind you closely locks up his tires, and believe me, that's definitely true. You can definitely smell that as Timothy Stoll there runs a little bit wide on Blanchimont again, but doesn't lose any time because he's just able to put a wheel off and continue on and stick right back on the tail of John Kuzland. Very, very tight battle for 5th place right now.
And a quick note, Todd Carver exited the pits a little bit ago, and it took him a minute 26 in the pits. Most cars are taking a minute 6 or so, so it looks like that cost him about 20 seconds in repairs.
Yeah, add to that the slow lap he took to get in there. So Todd Carver, unfortunately, well down the field right now. But if anyone can make a run back, Todd Carver, runner-up for the Ford GTs last year, very consistent driver, and hopefully he'll. I mean, it's the car's damaged. He's got an hour and a half left, and it's going to be a long race for him if he's fighting a car that's crabbing a little bit. As we're on board with Daniel Grolte, who's now right back up with Colin McLean. He had Kevin Swall over him just a moment ago, and now he's going for the lead. And looks like a bit of contact, or was that curb? But it was close.
Alan really shut the door on him there. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I can tell you, we didn't have any contact there, but he did shut the door pretty well on me.
John Kuzla getting sideways. That's going to take the pressure off Stoll for a little bit there, and let him focus on cutting through traffic, because the next closest car is, well, still John Kuzland, and he's now about 5 seconds behind Timothy after that spin. So now after Daniel Grolte made the pass attempt on McLean, we have Savoy right in the tail of him. So this is really a tight battle. A lot of this is traffic dependent too. By themselves, they're running pretty similar lap times, but once you get into traffic, you really have to pick your spots, and if you catch that car at just the wrong time, you can lose a place, but if you catch it at the right time, you can gap your competitors as well. So a lot of cat and mouse kind of chess type thinking going on here, on top of the fact you're controlling a let's be honest, this thing's a beast of a car. A lot of horsepower, grip, but not a ton of grip, and I mean, you're really on edge a lot of this race, and also trying to manage your tires in the whole bit. So it is a really challenging car to drive. So you have to manage all of that while lapping slow cars. So these guys right now doing a fantastic job and running 1, 2, 3, all within under a second and a half. 1.2 seconds separates the top three right now, which is very impressive.
Yeah, just kind of to add on to the style of car that the Daytona Prototype is. To me, it seems like a glorified GT car. I mean, going back to last season with the LMP, that has aero, ground effects, and everything, creating all this downforce. Well, you don't really have all that with the Daytona Prototype. You've got a wing on the back, and you've got a splitter on the front, and that's pretty much it. So definitely a different style to driving this car, and to drive it as fast as these top three guys are through traffic is definitely a fun sight to watch.
Now that's always a tough situation right there. You have a Ford GT they're trying to lap, and another one slowing down to let the faster Ford GT through, as you have three Daytona Prototypes coming through. And James Mines right now trying to pull over to the side he can to let these guys go, because you're getting a very, very narrowing piece of racetrack there as you're trying to go down the middle of two Ford GTs. And honestly, I mean, ideally you wouldn't want to do that, but in that situation, one of them slowing like that, you really don't have much of a choice, because it's, oh, and Daniel Grolte is off. There is a wall. Nope, he's back on. That was a nice save, Dan. I was impressed with that, because there's a little bit of a wall there. I mean, he hit the ground pretty hard, got the rear tires up in the air, and it was very easy to either loop the car or shoot straight off into the wall. So able to get that car back in the track, very impressive. And position switch, we have Colin McLean, Kevin Swan now, Daniel Grolte, same gap approximately.
And that Ford GT, James Mines as Evgeny goes a little bit up against Julio Palacio. That Ford GT does belong to, as you can see it back there, John Middleton, who's now down a lap. He qualified very well, but obviously had some type of incidents that has pushed him way far back in the field.
Keep in mind that John Middleton's down laps. That's not good. That's the end of a James Mines race.
To see that happen. I'm sorry. That was actually John Middleton in second. I was wrong. He was not down a lap. So very strange that he was running so slowly right there and just let James Mines by. But
it's possible he had a corner cutting going through the comb there, because that's a very easy car. As you saw with Evgeny Guerrinin, lost a little bit of braking while he was battling with Julio Palacio and ended up cutting across the escape road there through the comb. And more often than not, you'll get a short to black flag that you'll have to clear by slowing down. And I mean, guess that's what happened to him. And then what happened there was well, let's be honest, he shanked the braking there. He came right into the back of James Mines, and that was a hard hit. So I don't think James Mines' car is doing all that well right now. I don't know what John Middleton, but James's car did not come off that very well.
And here we can see Chuck Chambliss coming up alongside Quaroni. Quaroni giving Chambliss Eau Rouge, but losing some time to Mike Kelly.
Yeah, that's kind of that was kind of an awkward spot for Chambliss to catch Quaroni, because I think I caught the front of his car. Looks like he's got some damage, so he doesn't really have quite the speed that he normally would. And so that really forced Qualroni to have to give up a lot of time, especially going through Eau Rouge. You can see Kelly was, he overcooks it a little bit going into that corner, but he definitely gained a lot of time on him going down, and that's really just kind of created a whole awkward situation there, and that's just multi-class racing, really.
Yeah, I was noticing that actually as Chuck was going through Eau Rouge there, that he was sparking pretty heavily, so I mean that's only going to come from damage, really, so... We got now Ricardo Machuca right now falling closely behind Joe Jr.
Well, this is a nice little Ford GT train going on right here. This is we're focusing on Daniel Qualroni. He's currently running in 7, but just ahead of him is Marty Jeffries in P6, and just behind, like we were just talking about, is Mike Kelly in 8th. Ooh, and Qualroni locking the fronts a little bit, just missing the braking point, I guess, a little bit. Definitely good maneuvering to avoid any contact between those two cars.
That wasn't so much of a missed brake point as much as we'll see as the race goes on, hopefully more of the battle between myself and Marty, but I was definitely better on the brakes than he was through this race.
So that was just more reaction.
Up a little bit earlier than I did, yeah.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, that's one thing, because the lack of downforce in the Ford GTs, and actually these classes here, I'm used to the LMP driving and braking, really using the aero a lot to get the brakes, really just stamp brakes for the most part, and let the car slow. These ones, really easy to lock them up, and you're going to see a lot of variation in braking, especially if your setup isn't quite right, as Corny loses a place to Kelly.
Look like
Kelly, one of the... Yeah, Kelly was one of the 2 wins last year in the LMP, and if you remember back to his Phillip Island race there, a couple of fantastic passes on the outside around turn 2. So Mike definitely knows how to race a stalwart, I believe, in the I'm not sure, in some of the oval track series, the NASCAR series that we have, the Power Series, or the Star Series. I don't remember if Dan knows it or not, but he's a fantastic all-around driver. So just another decided to jump in the Ford GT this year to add another car to his already long list of raceable cars.
And also a dirt track late model driver, I believe.
Well, that's in real life, yeah.
In real life, correct? Yeah.
That's one thing we don't point out a lot too, because we have some bios on a lot of these guys, and I mean we know each other pretty well from racing each other for so long. But things like that we'll start rolling out in the next couple races. We'll do profiles on some guys and previous racing histories, that sort of thing. James Cullen, I know, the number 56. He likes pie. I remember he likes pie, so I just wanted to point that out there. We'll have more gold bits of information like that as we go on, but for the 2 hours of spa, James Cullen likes pie.
Tune in next race to find out what kind of pie he likes.
On the topic of James, it looks like James Mines is only 3.5 seconds behind John Middleton after that incident at the bus stop. So we thought it would take Mines right out of the race, but it looks like he's keeping up with Middleton pretty well at the moment.
And I'm sure the urge for James to give John the chrome horn when he comes back is pretty high, but it's a long race, and I'm pretty sure he'll refrain from any such sort of vigilante justice. But it's like I say, it is a long race and stuff happens. But like I said, that looked like a particularly hard hit, and it made me cringe a little bit. And it's not even I'm not even in the car right now. So as we got Kevin Servat with Colin McLean racing very hard as they're lapping. Looks like not sure what DP that is, but
that is the 66. It's Mike Taylor.
So yeah, the top 3 right now in Daytona Prototype, 0.7 seconds apart.
And they're so close, and we're 40 minutes into this race, and they've gone through all kinds of traffic. So that's very impressive for those guys to be able to stick so close together while lapping traffic.
Now this is the battle for second place in the Caddies, and then since Wyatt Foster is in the Caddies, this is really the battle for the lead, because I mean, Wyatt runs his exhibition race, waves to the crowd, signs some autographs and whatnot, and the rest of the guys behind him get down to some real racing. As you can see here, Wyatt I don't know what he's doing right now, but he's probably driving with one foot in the wheel, hitting the gas pedal with his hand. I don't know if he smokes, taking up smoking,
Yeah. He's got plenty of time. He's running about 31 seconds in front of these guys, so plenty of time to do whatever he wants.
Tim McLeish here. I wanted to mention this before when we saw him briefly, but we're on board with him right now. If we get a shot of the outside, a fantastic paint scheme. Steam Whistle Breweries, based out of Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Right, actually, in the if you're familiar with the CN Tower, pretty much right at the base of the CN Tower, that stuff is brewed, and it's a fantastic beer and a great logo. I love the green, so really impressed with Tim's car there. Makes me feel right at home.
And Ricardo Machuca running with the Machuca, sorry, running with the Cadillac sponsor there. I'm sure that'll make Cadillac very happy.
Yeah, Ricardo, another one of the Portuguese named Canadians we have in the field here. So there's a number of those racing with us, it seems. I believe it's Portuguese. I apologize, Ricardo, if I've got that wrong, but. Okay, we're going here, Stavolo 1, very tight corner, and then Stavolo 2, almost flat out. Just a little feather of the throttle here. Another place, too, where you have a lot of runoff on the left-hand side there. I mean, you can pretty much run there no problem without worrying about spinning out. You have to make sure you're not turning while on the curb. You have to let the car run over the curb a little bit, because if you turn while on the curb, it is a little bit of a bump, and you could let the rear tires go a bit. Now on board with Brett Van Horn. We haven't seen a lot of him today, running the 98. Another sharp-looking car there. He is running 14th place right now. Very consistent performer right now. He's unfortunately a little bit further back than he'd probably like, but actually no, because of pit stops he's now up to 12th place, but having a good solid race, and good to see him up on the screen there. Back to Joe and Ricardo battling for second place, aka first in the Caddies. Yeah, we're about 45 minutes into this race here, so things are really starting to settle down. This being sim racing, you talk about those familiar with the sim racing know this already, but those who don't, who stumbled across this and like what they see, and hopefully like what they see here, is you think, okay, you're just sitting down for 2 hours, gas and brake, and you don't have the G-forces and whatnot in real life. But I mean, it's still very tense, it's very stressful, and it is very grueling in its own way, because it's a mental challenge. In real life, you have the mental focus of not wanting to crash and kill yourself, which until you do it, I mean, you really don't understand the focus. I mean, you don't blink when it happens. If you watch real life drivers as they show the onboard cameras, you watch their eyes. I mean, they blink so infrequently, if at all. You don't quite have that, oh my god, I'm about to die sort of, force pushing you forward. So sitting in a car for hours, not making any mistakes, running at a very high speed is extremely difficult, and 45 minutes in is when you're going to start to feel it here, and from here on out it's going to be grueling to try to keep these cars going to the end.
Yeah, remember, season, most of the races are going to be either 70 or 75 minutes, so we're getting close to what would be, and that was Kevin Savoy, who was looking to go around Kyle McLean around the outside for first place, but couldn't quite finish it. These guys are still battling very hard, and they've been that way for pretty much the entire race. But yeah, we're getting down to about a third of the way left of what a normal race would be, and they've still got a whole nother 45 minutes or so after that. So it's really going to be a test of your mental toughness and how focused you can stay to make it the entire 2 hours.
See Jeremy Burris here, just coming up on, or getting passed by Anthony Muniz, getting a chance to look at the new Kaiser Racing team lineup. Myself and Anthony have teamed up this year, and a very sharp-looking car put together by Anthony, so good job. I believe Daniel, actually, Mr. Gralty there, do you do your own paint cars, or do you have someone do that for you?
Marty has actually been doing those for the last, I've been running that paint scheme on the V8, GT, the LMP for the last 4 seasons, I believe, and Marty has done them for me.
Yeah, actually,
so big thank you to him.
Yeah, Marty Jeffries has actually done a lot of the cars for the series. He had done my car last year. I mean, I made a few edits to it, but I mean, the base was a Marty Jeffrey design. Ryan Corns, all the the Turn 1 Heroes racing cars are done by Marty.
Yep.
Very, very talented painter out of Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, Canada. Makes it seem like such more of a badass town if you call it Dartmouth, but my wife actually was born and raised for an early part of her life there, and then anytime I call Dartmouth instead of Dartmouth, it's not good for me, so we'll just continue calling it Dartmouth.
Just tell her to skip over this little part.
She doesn't watch these. Although if she's still awake, she definitely hears me commentating, so... Oh, and she just yelled at me right now, so I am totally thought she was in bed.
So we are watching Mike Kelly there, and he had been just ahead of Quaroni and Jeffries, and he made a pit stop a little bit earlier. You saw Quaroni and Jeffries exiting the pits just as Kelly went by. So about a, let's look, 4-second lead now, I think, on them. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's going to turn into quite a battle. I mean, right now they're still kind of spread out and whatnot, but this, I think, is going to be... We've seen these guys sticking pretty much together with each other for pretty much throughout the entire race. So I think if they've managed to stick with each other so far, I think they'll be able to stick with each other towards the end, as long as, you know, barring any accidents or anything like that.
And I apologize to those out there. It sounds like someone's having a bowl of cereal right now, so or doing some light repair work.
That's just the ambient pit sounds that we have coming into our commentary booth.
We keep it professional in the booth here.
Yeah, I thought I was being quiet.
We'll take another look at Ryan Huff, and he's chasing down another one of those Can-Am racing machines. This one
Ryan
being
Huff's up
Don
to 5th
Hunter.
place right now.
Yeah, and we've seen him, you know, quite far down on the field at the start of the race, and he's, you know, done a great job of pulling his way back up. He's been very consistent and made some great passes, and he's managed to get him. Oh, and that is Don Hunter pulling into the pits for his first pit stop, so that'll elevate Ryan up to a temporary 4th position.
Yeah, Ryan, I think when we first joined him, he was right about 18th, so...
yeah.
Oh, and we got Wyatt Foster here, one of the Turn 1 Heroes cars, and there's Sobey, and he's in 3rd place. He's obviously made a pit stop. I say obviously because he's not leading the field by about a minute, so just running down one of the Can-Am cars as Mike Kelly, another one of the Turn 1 Heroes, Ford GT this time. So you can see currently 7th place as he's running down, running down Tim McLeish. He's about 15... Nope, Tim's in the pits, so Mike's come up a couple more positions here as pit stops for the GT cars are shaking out. The Daytona Prototypes, because they only need to make one pit stop, you're not going to see really anyone making a pit stop until at least the 1 hour point. I'm sure there could be some variation there. I mean, technically you could probably make a pit stop right now and make it to the end, but I suspect that more often than not you're going to find the guys are going to be going as long as they can on that first stint. So
yeah.
There is a strategy. I mean, because if you pit sooner, you tend to fastest laps on fresh tires regardless of the fuel in the car. So if you wanted to leapfrog a guy, then, you know, for sure you go in, you probably go a little bit faster and maybe gain a position or two. However, once you get to the end of the run there, and you'll be on those tires for a long time, they do get pretty slick and you're susceptible to losing a lot of positions towards the end of the race. So it's really kind of balancing an act. There's a lot of different ways you can play it, and I think in the end they probably all shake out to roughly the same speed. It's just kind of how traffic plays out, and I mean, there's a lot of variables involved. Yeah.
You can see a whole gaggle of GT cars, primarily the Cadillac, and some of these, and that looked like a Daytona Prototype in the wall. I couldn't quite catch who it was for sure, but it looked like Kevin Savoy. I caught the green wing on. I'm pretty sure that is Kevin. So
he's dropped down to 8th at the moment, so could definitely be.
Remember, he was fighting very hard. Yeah, remember, he was fighting very hard with Colin McLean for that first place, so that is very unfortunate. Looks like he must have just lost it coming out of turn 9, bounced off the wall onto the left side of the track there and caused some damage.
I don't know who that DP is, but he's showing a lot of patience in getting around this huge gaggle of caddies.
Looks like he's also got some dirt on his paint scheme, covering it up and making it not look as good.
as originally intended. It does look pretty trash from the outside. I mean, I'll just know that again. Clarification: I was being fair because that is me in that car there, and not having seen the outside of my car during the race, not realizing how brutal it looked for a good 2/3 of this race. I had an unfortunate run-in with some Armco not being where it was supposed to be, or I wasn't being where I was supposed to. I blame the Armco on that one. I mean.
It looks like the Cadillacs are getting a little bit more settled down now. We've got, I believe that is Joe Jr., who we are focusing on right now, in the number 16 Radical Racing. And then just behind him we have Mark Payne. That is the battle for 4th. And then just above them is James Cullen. And he's currently running in 3rd place. And it looks like Mark Payne's gonna... thought he might have a little bit of a run there on Joe Jr., but doesn't look like it.
That's one of the things too, is because of the nature of the track in this car, it's a little easier to run side by side in some cases. In the LMP last year in particular, which is what I had experience with, any contact of any sort at all, it was punished severely by damage. A little bit of side-to-side contact here in any one of these cars isn't really bad. It won't cause a spin. Also, just the way they go through the corners too, because they're not as razor edge aerodynamically wise. You can run a little bit different lines and run through most of these corners side by side to some extent. I mean, obviously it's not ideal. You're not going to be running nearly as well and as quickly as you would otherwise. But as you saw there a couple laps ago, you had all the caddies, you know, going 2x2 basically around about 3 or 4 corners. It's not something we would typically see in the series, but it's extremely entertaining right now, and I'm really liking this car combination that we have for Season 7 here. And even though, as you saw, being able to like kind of cut through traffic here, as difficult as that is, it seemed to the outside viewer there, and believe me, it was difficult. You have honestly no idea from the outside there. We talked about it a little bit last year, but the stress involved when you're lapping slower cars in the LMP, and you were doing it continuously, and every single time it was a hair-raising experience because one unexpected move by the guy in front, there's absolutely nothing you could do because you're so committed speed-wise. At least here, the differential is significant enough you can get by, but minimal enough that you're not extremely surprised if there's a slight change of direction or unexpected event. Normally you can get out of it without soiling a perfectly good pair of underwear.
And have fun, Dan Morera there. Gonna put up to 10th. And Mark Payne is really applying the pressure here to Joe Jr., who goes slightly wide. That's going to give Mark Payne probably a slightly better run up Kemmel Straight. You can see he's thinking about the inside.
Yeah, Mark Payne is a very... no, he can't quite do it there. But Mark Payne's extremely experienced, a very quick driver. Very new to the caddy, so he's a little slower in pace than he would otherwise be once he gets a better handle on his setups. But notice he's running very, very smooth, letting Joe make all the mistakes, running wide, heating up the tires because these cars are very sensitive to tire temperature. So basically he just needs to hold back, keep Joe under pressure, let him make mistakes, run wide, slide the car, and eventually his patience will pay off and he should be able to get by him no problem here. But I mean, it's not guaranteed obviously, but that's the idea is trying to do. Is Muniz there and the other Kaiser Racing Libro sponsored car is trying to get past this group here, and as they're battling very intently for what is 3rd place right now, they're not going to be as willing to let the guys by, but Anthony made the issue a moot point as he stuck his nose inside Mark, and Mark forced to give way, and it should be a corner or two before he's able to get by Joe, hopefully going into Stavlo here, and job done, and these gentlemen can resume their battle as Mark maybe take advantage of that.
I was going to say, it looks like I might have helped Mark around Joe Jr. there. Oh, nope, Joe still manages to defend his position and hold on to that 3rd spot. But it does look like Ricardo Machuca was able to catch up a bit. He's now applying the pressure to Mark Payne.
And in particular, I'm going to have to ask Ricardo how to pronounce his last name, because in my head I've got it 3 different ways. I'm not sure which one to do, so if I really screwed up, Ricardo, I apologize. It's because I'm trying to combine 3 into 1, and we'll go with Machuca for now. I'm thinking Machusa, and there's a few others that are in the mix there, but hopefully you can straighten that out for us for the next race.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing, so if I did get that wrong, I do apologize.
He spent so much time last year getting everyone's name just right, and then guys like Ricardo come in and join the series, and we're glad to have him, but man, I wish your name was Smith.
Well, we're going to go back with Ricardo now, as he's still right on that back bumper of Mark Payne.
And James Cullen just ahead of these guys, so I mean, this is a 4 horse race. I gotta stop calling them horses, but
and I don't know if you caught that, Brian, but Ricardo just, Mark Payne dove to the inside. Ricardo drove by, and just almost like he gave him that position. I'm not exactly sure what that was about, but
I actually
Ricardo
didn't catch that for some reason. My display there kind of just do a little jump freeze. We're okay now, but I literally missed it. It looked like one car just warped in front of the other because it paused about halfway down the straightaway. So we're back in business, showing on board with Ryan Huff, right?
Yep, and he's still fighting down that Can-Am Racing Cadillac of Don Hunter. Looks like he's going to have a pretty good run on him coming out of Eau Rouge, as that DP came by. Oh, but that is Chris Damron there in the Ford GT. That's going to kind of might put a damper on Ryan Huff's attempt to get around Don Hunter. Yeah, it looks like it will. I don't think he'll be able to. Hunter defending the inside, and Huff will have to try somewhere else.
As we see Chris Damron phasing in and out of the current dimension, and luckily he's back with us in the present world. You notice that happened a lot. We're actually very good this race. I've noticed a lot of that. It's typical, honestly, at the beginning of races you'll see a lot more of it, but as things settle down you won't see as much of the warping and the dropping connections as we had before, but there's an hour left, and hopefully that doesn't happen to too many people. Remember last year Jeremy Burris was an unfortunate victim of that on more than one occasion, much to his dismay, and the rest of us racing him too. It's much more fun to pass someone on the than have him disappear into the netherworld.
And it looks like the battle between Ricardo and Mark Payne have allowed Joe Jr. to pull a bit of a gap between those two guys, and it's up to about half a second now.
That's how you know you've got close racing, when you build a gap up to half a second.
Yeah, I think that's something that we are really contrasting from Season 6. Didn't really, with an hour into the race here at Spa last season, I don't think we really saw quite this many battles on the circuit. I mean, in every class. Well, maybe not so much in the Daytona Prototypes anymore, but the GT field, the battles in the GT cars has been, amazing so far. We've had at least 3 or 4 in the Cadillacs and 2 or 3 great battles in the Ford GT. So I'm, really enjoying the battles that this car combination is presenting.
Yeah, I think at this point last season it was pretty much the Gralty Cullen show in the Ford GT at this point in the race. Yeah. Oh, Ryan Huff could have pushed it there and made the Can-Am car take the inside line. That would have given him the run up on Eau Rouge. Decided to be a gentleman about it though, and get a spot.
Well, I mean, Ryan's come up this far. He's up, and the pit stop shook out. He's up to 9. I mean, there's an hour left. He's not going to try to, throw it away here. He's made a lot of progress. He wants to see it through. As Chuck Chambliss dives into the pits there, so it looked like there might have been a little bit of damage on the front of his car. I didn't quite see what was going on there, but
yeah, there's definitely
Chuck is into the pits.
Yeah, there's definitely some bodywork damage on his car. And Joe Jr. has caught up to James Cullen and he's going to be fighting for P2 in the Cadillac class. And we've seen, looks like Joe Jr. Oh well, he's kind of brought the other 2 guys up along with him. So this is quickly becoming a battle for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th in the Cadillacs. Or, as we established earlier, first, because Wyatt Foster is currently 47 seconds ahead of James Cullen.
I just also like to point out, too, one of those, I mean, we know James now likes pie. I mean, that was established earlier. But he was actually the first one of us in the ISRA group to be able to drive the Cadillac, as he was able to visit the booth at the Long Beach Grand Prix, where iRacing had debuted the simulator there. So, I mean, unfortunately, you don't get to learn a lot, and not a lot of time in the seat, but anytime a new car comes out, I mean, we're kids on Christmas, basically. I don't know about you guys, but even the smallest update, every time I see that red comes saying that you need to update now, I'm just waiting to see what new toys that iRacing has come up with us. And that's one of the benefits of the iRacing service here. I mean, they're really doing their best to approximate real life as best they can, and they do a really, really good job of roughly every 13 weeks, but sometimes sooner, always making improvements to the car. It's always getting better. It's a very, very good sim right now. It's as close to real life racing as you're going to get anywhere outside of the track out there, but they're still finding ways to improve it. I mean, on a continuous basis, and it's this. I mean, this season here, all these cars on an upgraded tire model, new cars, new physics. They're really, really fun to drive, and as you can see here, quite the challenge. And as you're watching it right now, the quality of the video that Daniel's put together, and I mean, this is virtually indistinguishable from watching it on the TV. I mean, you're going to notice if you're up close, but if you're watching this at some distance, I mean, you're going to be hard-pressed to spot the differences between real life. I mean, sure, you might see the same guy in the stands that you saw, 5 or 6 other times down the straightaway, but, I mean, as far as the racing goes, which is where your attention should be firmly focused, I mean, it's quite the, and especially due to the fact that all our, Marty Jeffries in particular for paints, but all of our competitors, very excellent paint schemes, really puts a professional edge to, let's be honest, very professional series run by ISRA.
This right here is, well, it's Kenny Coughlin, and it's showing him. Let's see. This is third and fourth, and you should be able to see. Well, no, James Mine's now 20 seconds ahead of Kenny Coughlin. So despite that damage, he's really pulled out, and so I guess didn't really slow him down at all. John Middleton, though, really putting on the pressure and trying to get by.
And we can see, I believe that was the Ford GT of Mike Kelly, not that far behind Middleton. So this could turn into a 3-car battle here before too long.
That's one of those things we noted last year too, and I'm not sure if it's just his driving style, or if he does it on purpose, but Mike seems to like to throw and give himself a challenge, so he has to race back and pass a few people, but more than likely probably because of that style. He does make a mistake or two here and there, puts him behind cars that he's otherwise faster than, and hoping he can catch up to these guys and really, because right now basically it's been the caddy show for the last little while. Oh, Ricardo, oh no, I jinxed him. That's my bad. Sorry, Ricardo.
He did a nice 360 and recovered without making any sort of contact. He lost the place to Mark Payne, but otherwise he's still going to be able to continue the race.
Yeah, lots of time to catch back, but really, like I was saying, the caddies were stealing the show there as far as close racing, and I think that comes down to the fact that it's really easy to heat up those tires. I don't know if Ricardo is pushing too hard there, but the harder you push the car, the more slick they come in. Daniel Crony, oh my goodness, buddy, getting extremely sideways coming out of the second Stavolo there, and losing a place to Marty Jeffries. That's been an ongoing battle for most of the race. That said, it looks like he's going to take a run back at him if we could see that, but now we're on board with, we don't need to see this.
I think that you're passing someone in the pits here. And yep, there you go, elevated up to 5th, and that was Russell Cow, who Brian Carey just passed in the pits.
It looks like Kenny took a little too much on the inside of the corner there, so he's going to have to slow down and let John by, I believe. Looks like he's racing up pretty hard in the corner.
I don't think he got the track cutting, but it did definitely cost him some time just because it was a bad way to take a Rouge. And easily John Middleton's pass up on the straight.
And we'll go back and on that very same straight and watch Marty Jeffries try and hold off Daniel Colroney for the 6th position in class. Again, looks like Colroney was able to close up quite the distance between...
yeah, and that was what I was talking about earlier. That's where I was just out-braking Marty like crazy, but then he was out-driving me on the corners, and that's how he was able to keep the distance.
Colin McLean being by some guys with a massive 3.5 second lead over Daniel Giralty. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's a timing and scoring error, but we don't see Kevin Savoy on the timing screens anymore. I don't know if Dan, do you remember what happened to Kevin?
He took that
spin he had earlier was...
Yeah, he's showing up in 11th right now. He's 8 laps down at the moment from the leader.
Yeah, that was race-ending damage that Kevin took, nosing it into the wall there.
As it looks like we can see Dan right now coming up the inside of Joe. Or no, wait, that's a... no, there it is. That is. Don't get quite the resolution in the rear-facing camera that we do facing forward, but that was Dan Giralty there lapping Joe, and I believe that's James right ahead of him. Yeah, James.
Yep.
So one of the things from a distance too is, and I noticed from driving that James and Mark have the same sort of white and blue kind of colors. I mean, when you see them head on like side by side, I mean, there's a clear difference, but as you're moving, you just kind of pick up the white and the blue, and I will probably mix up Mark and James at many points in the future, but right now it's Joe battling with James up ahead of him. Mark is a couple seconds behind Joe.
Yeah, I can say the gap between myself and Colin had expanded there a bit. He eventually got up to about 4.5, 5 seconds. But he was getting through traffic much more efficiently than I was. Maybe I was just catching them at bad places. But once we were in open air, I was reeling him in by at least a few tenths a lap.
Yeah, that's one thing actually I was noticing from the onboards of both yourself and Kevin battling with Colin is Colin does tend to drive a very, very wide Daytona Prototype. Didn't seem to be a lot of openings.
He is a difficult Scotsman to pass.
Typical Scottish efficiency, and kind of a side note here, for some reason during the last race when I was both himself and Colin up there, Kenny Coughlin also Scottish as well, but you get the been watching a lot of old episodes of DuckTales, and I picture Scrooge McDuck every time I hear the accent. I don't know if that's right or not, and I know that Colin is not a duck, nor wears a top hat, but if he did, I'm sure he would possibly resemble Scrooge McDuck a little bit. But it's just random point of the race. We're about an hour and 10 minutes in, and it's typical what I bring to the table here at about this point in the race.
So a point here, we were just on board with John Kuzman, who's at the moment shown in the lead of the race, but both Colin McLean and Daniel Giralty in the pits, and I'm assuming that Kuzman simply hasn't made his pit stop yet.
John Kuzman's famous for getting the most out of a tank of gas. He was the same way in the LMP, and it looks to be the same way here. Just driving style or whatnot, he's just, he's quick and he racks up the fuel mileage too. So, especially in races where this isn't really one of them because it's a one stop no matter what, but in races where stops become critical, John has a huge advantage and real most out of that.
And also, Giralty and McLean out of the pits. Giralty making the pass in the pits.
Yeah, I did. I believe Colin took a little more fuel than was needed for the finish of the race. And so I was able to slip out just ahead of him.
Oh, and that scraping sound of someone in the dirt. We didn't catch who. Oh, was that, Ron, was that you in the dirt?
Yeah, after my initial damage early in the race, there was I was having trouble keeping that thing putted straight, so I was able to keep it off the wall, but it was getting dirty. That's one thing too. This is extremely long track and a long race to be muscling around a damaged car for a long time. You want to be mixing it up there and getting places and really pushing the car to the limit, not trying to make sure all the pieces don't fall off the car. Feels like the episode of Top Gear where they try to drive the cars as long as they can without having everything fall off the car and not be successful at it. And I apologize, it sounds like I'm not entirely sure, but now that Dan's done with his cert, apparently he's trying to eat his microphone, so...
No, this one isn't blamable on me, unfortunately. That's someone else.
Mark or Anthony, Dan? Because there's Snacks, the caterer. I saw him in the back. Not to start cannibalizing our equipment, but no matter.
I will try and refrain myself.
It looks like here after Ricardo's spin, he's managed to catch right back up on Mark Payne, Joe Jr., and James Cullen.
Yeah, nice little, like I say, the 360 you did there, didn't lose him all that much time, and all it really takes is a little bit of traffic, actually, for the lead car to get caught behind a slower car, or another car from one corner. It takes, and now they're basically James, Joe, Mark, and how close are they together? It's less than a second, it looks like, so...
Yeah, they pretty much nose to tail at this point.
I'm trying to do the math right now, adding up the gap because they are not the leaders, so it's kind of hard to get the relative. But yeah, they are. You can throw a blanket over all of them. Oh, Ricardo deep on the brakes. Did he get through without making? Yeah, that was a. That was a brave pass, but well done to keep the car turned into the apex. Extremely easy to go run wide there, but he got it done. Yeah, this being the first race we've had with Caddy, and I mean, this is it is a sharp-looking car, I must admit. Like, I'm really a big fan of the kind of like the high-powered touring car type cars. The Daytona Prototypes, which you drive, are you know, they're fast, they're good cars, but aesthetically not the best-looking cars in the world.
Definitely the uglies. Oh, and this is Kenny Coughlin losing it coming out of Pujon and into the barrier. Had a little bit of snap oversteer there as he put too much throttle coming out and just lost the car.
I had mentioned before that through Pujon there that there's a lot of runoff there if you run wide, but the problem is that's with understeer. With oversteer, because it's such a fast corner, you really have to be gentle on the corrections there, and it's so hard to do, as you can see with Kenny unfortunately not able to control it. We're correcting to the right, and you saw how quickly it from him. I mean, it's so easy to do that, and unfortunately it caught Kenny out. I believe this is Ryan Huff in the pits here. I don't think he took any damage anywhere, so hopefully this is his last stop of the race. 11th as we speak right now, but if he's making an early last stop, hopefully to get the run on some of these guys with fresh tires, and maybe we have an off here. What are the odds? Kenny trying to get back to the pits, it looks like.
Yeah, this has remained a pretty close battle for a number of laps now, and with only about 44 minutes left in the race, we'll probably be seeing it be broken up by people taking pit stops, which is unfortunate. But hopefully by the end of the race, they will all make their way back and group back up and give us some great action at the end of the race. Well, this is, I'd just like to point this out, this is something different since the last time we've taken a look at this battle. This is Daniel Porroni now leading the Marty Jeffries, and that is they're currently in 4th place, so that is well up the field, so good job on those two guys.
As you see Anthony Muniz here coming up on this train of cars, it's going to be a difficult one to get around, as all these guys are fighting hard for position and literally nose to tails. They went through last source there. I mean, you could have hooked up a 6-inch chain from the front to back each one of those guys. Because I mean, that's exactly they're running right there, and got kind of Anthony's got to thread his way through here. It shouldn't be too bad. He'll get 1 car per corner basically. Was that Ricardo? God, that was a high rate of speed. He went off there and pointed the wrong way. So it's possible that ended his race because there is a wall on the outside there.
Well, let's see. There he is.
Looked like he managed to keep it off the wall. I think there is a tarmac runoff there, so if he managed to get the car straight and just apply the brakes, it looks like he was able to save it.
Oh, and Don Hunter again. I would like to point out every time Don Hunter comes on screen here, as he recall last year at Road America, he took his first race and we didn't see him once during the entire race because I forgot to hook his transponder on the car, so the director was able to follow him. But Don running a very, very solid race in 6th place. Last year obviously in the Corvette, this year in the Caddy, and I believe this is his first real run out in this car, so it's kind of a learning experience for him. You can expect Don to be challenging closer up to the front as the races progress. He's probably got too much ahead of him to catch too much up on the guys. What is he, about 10 seconds behind the guys ahead of him now?
Yep, and looks like he would be trying to... Well, if he was able to catch up to the guys in front, he'd be fighting with these guys right here. Mark Payne currently in 4th, looking to see if he can't catch James Cullen. Ooh, and Cullen gets a bit sideways coming through that first part of the chicane, but manages to save it, but he will lose time on Joe Jr. and then soon coming into the clutches of Mark Payne. And this is quickly becoming a 3-way battle here in the 4 GTs, and that is, who's that?
Patrick Spence right there.
Yep, Patrick Spence had a great run coming out of Eau Rouge, and he's going to challenge Marty Jeffries going down into the next corner. It doesn't look like he'll be able to make the pass because Marty's got the inside, will be able to defend, and then shuts the door on the left-hander, but definitely had the speed coming down the Kimmel Straight. And right now, I'm sure Qualroni is sitting there thinking, yes, you guys keep battling and I will just drive away.
And on board with the service here. Evgeny looking very anxious to get out of the pits, and there he goes. He's released. And it looks like he managed to pick up 1 spot, though. It's tough to tell. We didn't see the mentor to see what order they came in on. Well, he's got some pretty heavy damage there that he elected not to repair as well.
I would say now his car is starting to look like a true Russian car.
Oh, that's a change of position there. Joe's got around James Cullen, so Joe Jr. up to 2nd place in the Cadillacs.
This is turning into a real battle here. This is, well, we're looking at Patrick Spence at the moment, but just in front of him we have Marty Jeffries in P5 and then Daniel Qualroni in P4. And these guys, you know, they're separated by a couple seconds between all 3 of them, and Spence very late on the braking, catches right up to the back end of Jeffries, although, like Dan pointed out earlier, Jeffries might not be so good on the brakes as some of the other competitors here, so that could play into Spence's favor as if he tries to outbrake him coming up in some of the upcoming corners. Except unless he gets squirrely coming out of the source.
It is very difficult to get the power down in any of these 3 cars coming out of the source. Go with that downhill, coming out of that very slow corner. You're in first gear in any of the cars. It can be quite difficult to put the power down there.
Especially if you run a bit wide and get the tires on the either the rumble strip or the I'm not exactly sure. Ooh, and Qualroni gets a little squirrely coming out of that corner as well. That's going to give Jeffries a chance to challenge on the outside and see if he can make the pass. Looks like he's going to be able to make it stick. So Qualroni and Jeffries will trade places while Spence is still trying to find a way around both of them.
And Coroni there running pretty much the same paint scheme that it had last year in the LMP, but the Ford GT much better suited to basically what he's trying to do there as a kayak.com car, which is a website he introduced me, and I'm actually a pretty big fan of kind of what they offer there. As you can see, it's kind of a travel website, as you can see from the logos in the front of his car. So I suggest you check that out, as very, very well put together. Ooh.
Definitely makes identifying Dan's car much more easier when it very closely resembles his car from last season.
And actually a lot very, very similar, I was noticing too, during the 500 qualifying on TV this past weekend to Charlie Kimball's car. Same basic color scheme there.
Yeah, I guess I hadn't really thought about that. Yeah, I guess right. Oh, and Coroni pulls into the pits for his final pit stop. So he is the first of Jeffries and Spence to pitch. Now the big question will be, will he be able to basically leapfrog them and come out ahead of those two guys after the pit stop cycle through?
We haven't seen a whole lot of Dan Morera, but he's currently running in 6th, which is very good for him. Oh, unfortunately, a little bit of blink out there. Lost our telemetry on him, but it's been the Cadillac is really, or he has really taken to the Cadillac. Really got a good feel for it, and running some good times here.
Also, too, because I wanted to point out, and I'm sure Mr. Gralty here was trying to ignore the fact, but he seems to have dropped 4 laps down as he was taking the lead there, and we didn't see it on camera, but can you kind of run us through what happened?
I was hoping that maybe that wouldn't be mentioned. Yeah, I had led a couple of laps coming out of the pits, had a call, and he was about a second lead on him, and approaching Eau Rouge, had a GT just in front of me. I believe it was Jeff Smith lapping him, and as we exited Eau Rouge, I expected him to track out, and I was going to go to his left side, and probably a partial failure on my part to communicate my intention, and he was a little indecisive and picked the middle of the track, and not knowing which side I would go on, and I ended up clipping the rear end of him and ending up in the wall.
Well, that's something I remember last year that happened to a number of drivers there in particular. Again, I mentioned before the difference between the LMP and the other cars in cornering. I mean, they're flying through Eau Rouge so much faster, and then it's once you commit to the corner. Actually, in any one of these cars, that's an important point to say. Is like when you commit through the corner of these cars, there's really not a lot you can do, because I mean, you can kind of ease off the gas to slow down, but I mean, if you hit the brake, you're going to spin out. If you crank the wheel one way or the other, you're going to spin out, as you saw what happened to Kenny there. Just, I mean, a little overcorrection, you're off the track. And sometimes lifting off the gas isn't enough, and you end up coming hard into the back of someone. So, Eau Rouge in particular, as you're coming over the hill, you really have to commit through that corner, and you're on the gas. So even if you saw someone slow up ahead of you, and they weren't on the side of the track you're expecting, really at that point, you're just a passenger and hoping you don't hit them that hard, because you're going to hit them. And sometimes you get away with it, but unfortunately other times you can't. And I know that Dan was not the only victim of that at this track, and he wasn't the first, he won't be the last.
Well, with Dan's unfortunate incident, that really leaves not much competition for the current overall race leader, Colin McLean. He's currently leading Russell Cow by close to 15 seconds. So really not a whole lot of battles going on. Oh, and Evgeny taking a, well, we'll call that an abnormal line through the chicane there, but it seems to didn't spin out coming out of it, so I guess it all worked out okay.
And his car's looking a little bit more trash than it did at the beginning of the race, so he's got some damage up in the front there. You can see the front's rumpled quite a bit. And the Tim McLeish, as I mentioned before, in the steam whistle car, an awesome green colored car there.
The pristine looking car, if I ever saw one.
I can tell you, the director really enjoys watching Brett Van Horn pass people in the pits as he gets by Stephen Clark. Seems as though every time we see him, he's passing someone in the pits. Right there is 4th, 5th, 6th, I do believe, in the Cadillac.
Yep, as we jump on board with Dan Morera, who's currently trying to run down, I believe that's Don Hunter's Cadillac, and really gets a good, or really close the distance as they went through Les Combes, and as they go down to the Turn 8 carousel. Let's see if he can have a couple more good corners and maybe put a move on him.
Well, I was just saying there, I noticed it earlier with Genny going around the last chicane on the track. There's been a lot of revisions to the Spa-Francorchamps circuit over the years. Back in the, I mean, as early as the, again, they go back to the 30s or 40s, but they used to run the road course. It was over 8 miles long. It was a really fantastic course. In the early 80s, they reverted over to this current format, roughly right now. But that chicane, last chicane, used to be known as a bus stop chicane because it was literally a bus stop. It was public roads, and it was a really unique corner. And now they have this. I'm gonna be honest, it's such a brutal corner on such a fantastic track. It's kind of off camber. It's a slow chicane. It really doesn't flow with the rest of the track, and I mean it's notice because Evgeny was having a little trouble getting through the corner there, ran a little bit wide, but it's such a frustrating corner on what's otherwise a fantastic track, and I just really wish it wasn't there.
Oh well,
as we're going through it right now.
Yeah,
we're coming up there right now.
I actually really enjoy going through this corner for whatever reason. Most people hate this corner. I seem to like it.
I mean, it's an interesting elevation change. It's something you don't really notice on television, especially during the Formula One race. It's really up and down, and it's kind of, like I say, it's off camber or a couple of the apexes, so it's really easy to slow. Mm-hmm. And I understand the source is a slow hairpin, but I mean, it's kind of got the character of going downhill, and it is the source itself is kind of a unique corner, but the chicane has gone through, I don't know, probably about 3 or 4 different revisions since the original bus stop, and this is my least favorite of those revisions.
And Mark Payne going a little bit off track as he heads through Les Combes, but manages to. This one even looks like he had to give up any time for the course-cutting black flag, so he recovers nicely. Of course, now if this, Brian, you just mentioned how they continue to update and revise the circuit. Had this been up to the current revision of the circuit Spa-Francorchamps, there wouldn't actually be any grass there. That's all concrete and basically speed humps.
We finally got to see Wyatt Foster there a moment ago. He's leading the class by, let's see, a minute.
He's got a couple of griddles in the car that he picked up in the last pit stop, and showing around a little tour of the Belgian countryside and the Ardennes forest. A little Battle of the Bulge history, where it's fought in this area back in 1944-45, and really hamming it up there. So this is where I unnecessarily call it Foster for leading the race by like a minute and a half. Well, actually, almost exactly 1 minute from Joe Jr. right now. Hey, there he is again. So actually, it's again, in all fairness to Wyatt, he's driving a fantastic race, and that is another Marty Jeffries design, but a fantastic paint job on the front of that Cadillac.
And we'll jump on board Daniel Quarone's Ford GT, and you can see just on the right side, that is the Ford GT of Marty Jeffries. So that means Quarone passes Marty Jeffries in the pits. And that will elevate him up to 6th place. Although Mike Kelly looks like he is in front of Daniel Coroni at the moment. So Coroni able to get by Jeffries in the pits, but not Kelly.
And let's see, Patrick Spence had pitted, or rather was right behind me before I pitted. He's shown 6 seconds ahead, so he still hasn't made that pit stop.
Now, were you bottoming the car heading down towards Eau Rouge? Because I heard a little bit of chassis scraping there. I didn't know if that was residual from another shot, but...
I have a feeling I might have been, yeah.
Because that's one thing, too. Because of how the suspensions are, Eau Rouge is probably one of the heaviest compression points in all of, like I say, in all of racing, because you're going downhill, pretty much top speed for these cars, downhill, and then it compresses and the track shoots up and you're cornering, so you're putting an incredible load on the front of the car, and you really have to, this track in particular, really work the springs a little bit harder than you would otherwise, because it is such an tense corner on, you know, car and driver. And I noticed that, I know myself from experience, and it sounded like Dan too, as you're going through that compression here, you're really hitting the car hard, and it does have an effect in the handling as you go through there. Most of the time it's negligible, but if you hit it a little harder than you're expecting, a high speed spin could be in your future, so you want to be really careful around there overall. I'm not sure what Tim did to his car here, but it was does not look good. Rear wing looks a little kind of messed up. The front of the car is... one light's pointing the wrong way. That's Don Norris had a little bit of a spin chicane. It was Don Norris, one of our more consistent performers. He was with us all last couple of years, anyways. And I think that may have been the one of the first times you've seen him featured on the circuit there. He's just ahead of Marty Jeffries right now. So Don driving the number 12 car, the Daytona Prototype, the blue and black one right there. So hopefully Don's still watching this at home and got to see that.
Yeah, it doesn't get featured on the broadcast all that often, but...
Yeah, keep in mind the director is basically an emotionless cyborg, so it shows when it wants to show, and you know, we'll try to mix up here as we're following Marty Jeffries trying to chase down Daniel Coroni. He's just under a second behind him right now. James Cullen about 2.5 seconds behind Joe Jr. Actually getting a huge run on him, picking up almost a second on him down this straightaway, as it looks like Joe had to deal with one of the Ford GTs. Looks like James Mines, and they're trying to pass him. Is it just me, or does it look like that? I mean, the Cadillac, it's got like an upside down rear wing, just the way the mountings come over the top of it instead of underneath.
Yep, and it's got the sides of the wing don't protrude over the top of it at all, or very little if it does. So it's a very, very odd looking rear wing on that car. Of course, the mountings for the wing and the Ford GT is also a little irregular.
Yeah, but at least one still kind of comes over the top there, and it looks like in a interesting fashion. I was actually noticing that now. It's not something I really paid attention to while following, but a lot of interesting wing designs on these GT cars.
Yeah. And
as far as aerodynamics for, you can kind of see with the Ford GT and the Cadillac, it's kind of weird to say, but you can kind of see where they're going with the aerodynamics of the cars based on their, you know, the actual road cars and what they need to do. Whereas the Daytona Prototype, being a prototype car, and I don't know the regulations or whatever. I know the current regulations, the cars are looking a little bit more slick this year in real life than they have been in the past, but man, that thing looks bulbous and ungodly. But it's fast and fun drive, so I mean, I can't complain too much.
And we don't have to look at it while we're sitting in the driver's seat, so that's a plus.
No, when you're racing other guys, you kind of do. I tried closing my eyes once because I wasn't like it, but then, as you saw on like my the end of the first lap there, that didn't work out too well, did it? So, kept them open the rest of the way.
I think it's worth noting too, getting back to something that you had mentioned earlier in the race, Brian, is the importance of getting corners like Blanchimont, Eau Rouge, getting them right, and the amount of time that you can either gain or lose just with even the tiniest loss of momentum in either of those corners, just missing the apex by a few inches can make tenths of a second down the length of those straights at the speeds you're going.
Yeah, actually, that was the first thing that really caught my attention when I came here for the practice initially. Is after having run the LMP, going through Eau Rouge, my time going into home was determined by how fast I got through La Source, not through Eau Rouge. And even if I totally messed it up, I mean, it might have cost me like 2/10 if I got to the end of the straightaway from La Source all the way down to Lake Home, which is the chicane at the end after Eau Rouge. But here, I mean, I'd be showing up on my splits going to Eau Rouge, have to lift a little bit because I'm a little bit offline. Next thing I know, I'm 4/10 down. Same thing from Blanchimont down to the chicane. You lose a huge amount of time. Where I mean, that was not something I've only ever driven this course in iRacing through Star Mazda, the Formula One car, and the LMP. And I mean, it's just not something that happens by doing that, because they're basically flat out corners in those cars, and you just don't have that variation. So, I mean, in all these cars here, it's a lot of fun. Like I love the fact, as far as racing goes, that it makes such a huge difference, because you really have to hit your marks. And Eau Rouge is such a challenging blind corner that is extremely difficult to do properly every lap. I think they could have thrown some duct tape on Evgeny's car or something like that during the last pit stop. I mean, that is not looking good, but still going relatively quickly, it looks like. Like, it seriously looks like he just came from a monster truck event and did not participate. He was on the bottom end of...
He was one of the cars getting run over. And we'll jump back to one of the battles in Ford GT class. Marty Jeffrey still trying to see if he can't run down Daniel Qualroni for P6 in class. And in front of... that is a very slow Ford GT that those guys are getting by, it looks like. I missed who that was. Was one of the another SRN car, but he's obviously a lap down. Might have been Jeff Smith, possibly?
I believe that was Jeff Smith, yes.
Alright, so Smith staying nice and wide out of these guys' way, but it looks like he held up Qualroni quite a bit, because Jeffries was able to really close the gap to him.
Yeah, I guess if anyone knows which car Jeff Smith is, that it'd be Mr. Grolty here. I have to find a way to differentiate the two, because when you throw two Daniels in a commentary booth, it does get a touch confusing. So
I can't say that I got a much closer look at Jeff's car than I would have liked.
And also the two things with Daniel Qualroni and Marty Jeffries here, these guys' driving style is extremely smooth. It looks like there's not a lot of mistakes coming from them, as opposed when you're on board or following someone like Mike Kelly in particular. And there's Mike Kelly right there. Oh, and jeez.
Matthew Voigt spinning coming out of La Source.
Matthew Voigt changing. He was running the Dirt Devil car last year. Not sure what his primary sponsor is this year, but a kind of different look for him. Yeah, but I was saying, between these two guys here, you get someone like Mike Kelly, who drives the car a little bit more on edge and, it's a little bit more squirrely there. And I just actually noticed on Marty Jeffries' car that he's got a nice no-frills sticker on the side of the car. It's a grocery store, which I've been known to frequent. Interesting pickup there, very interesting paint job. As Marty has mentioned before, responsible for quite a high percentage of the paint schemes we see out there today. So
I think there's a supermarket named No Frills.
Yes.
Man.
There's a banana there.
Yeah, I see that. What an interesting name to choose for a supermarket chain.
Well, a little brief supermarket history for those of you not from Canada here. There's a large supermarket kind of conglomerate, like a I don't know, like a Kroger or a Meijer. Actually, probably closer to a Meijer, I guess, would be the American equivalent. But basically, you have like a larger like superstore type deal. There's other ones that are called Loblaw, which is same thing, no frills, and a few other variations too, where no frills is kind of the discount version of that store. So you have like one major grocery store, if you will, with a bunch of different brands, and No Frills is, as you can imagine, the No Frills version of that chain.
And if you don't know what Meijer is, it's just sort of think of a Walmart, sort of what it is.
Okay, and also I know Anthony might be familiar with this one or not, but my parents actually lived in the same area of the country, Anthony being living in Michigan in the Grand Rapids area, but they lived in the Flint area, and there's a Meijer in Flint that is pretty massive. And I go to the back of the store, and being Canadian, because we don't have alcohol in our supermarkets, I mean, well, beside the supermarkets, but same corner, I look one way, there's meat, another way there's beer, turn around, pants. So within arm's reach, I could buy meat, beer, and pants, and I thought that was the best thing ever. Like, I love that place for that very reason. Because what more do you need for a weekend other than meat, beer, and pants?
That is what you call one-stop shopping.
Probably don't need the pants.
Yeah, it was a really good weekend? Forget the pants. But back to the track here, where all these drivers are most certainly wearing pants, I would hope, just realizing that it's entirely possible that one or more of our drivers do these races without. I am currently wearing shorts right now, but that's beside the point. But anyways, we got Marty coming in. It looks like Colin McLean's ready to come up to lap them. Colin's got a pretty 17-second lead on Russell Cow right now, so really not in danger from there, but in danger potentially if he runs up the back of a Cadillac, which he looked like he almost nearly did there. Which I believe was Brett Van Hoorn not lapping or passing someone in the pits for once.
It'll be interesting to see if McLean getting past these two guys. Oh boy, he'll get by him in the same corner. Really doesn't seem. I was wondering if it would allow Quironi to get ahead a little bit, or if it would allow Jeffries to catch up and make a challenge for Quironi. But basically, after it all played out, looked like the battle pretty much the same. And even when Danny goes a little bit wide, really didn't affect the distance between them too much. So looks like both of these guys are very evenly matched at Spa.
Actually, one thing I want to notice there too is because we said it didn't really affect their times at all, and it's something we pointed out a lot last year, especially in the later races where, I mean, a lot of guys were unsure about when to let guys by and when not to. Basically what happened there was Quironi just kind of, he didn't take the apex. He kind of apexed about a car width and a half outside of the corner there. I mean, maybe lost a tenth or two. McLean was able to get through the inside. Jeffries wasn't able to do about it because Quironi was able to keep his speed through, and no harm, no foul. McLean runs on his way. These guys continue their battle, and everything's all well and good. Whereas if in the same situation, had Quironi dove down to the apex, it would have caused McLean to check up or even made contact. It would have backed Jeffries into him. McLean would have been forced to make probably a more aggressive pass attempt in another corner, which would have slowed Dan up and possibly cost him the position. So, kind of like a case in point. You just, I mean, we're not, you don't expect the slower cars to jump out of the way, but just ease off a little bit, take a little wider line. Everyone gets through, and no one's racing is ruined. As we can see, the battle will just, like I say, it's just continued on. Like Colin wasn't even there. We got our car twins here. Mark Payne is up ahead of James. Wait. No, James is ahead of Mark. Damn, I knew I was going to screw that up. That's the battle for second place right now. Joe Jr. has kind of lost track of those guys up ahead. He's about 17 seconds behind Mark right now, and
in the pits.
Quite a distant. Oh, yes, I see that. Okay, that's why. Unfortunately, probably due to some contact, because it doesn't seem like a typical pit window unless he got it a sequence earlier.
No, this could be a interesting opportunity for Jeffries. Here we can see Quironi just about to make contact with a Cadillac up here.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, hopefully not contact.
not contact. No. Meet up to pass. That's a better way to put it. I believe that looks like Jerry Mooresdorf, I believe, in the 42. I'm not sure, but let's see if Jeffries can take advantage of the traffic here. If Daniel catches him at a awkward position, that could present an opportunity for Jeffries to pass. Up until this point, that might be what it takes, because both of these guys are running very smooth, very consistently, and really neither one of them seem to have an edge anywhere on the track over one another. So it might take traffic like we see coming up in front of these guys for Marty Jeffries to be able to make a pass.
The other thing, too, though, is it looks like Marty and Daniel are pretty close on pace. So even if Marty's able to get by, there's still a lot of drafting that goes on, because there's a lot of long straights here. So it looks like he's all over him, because he's able to, be close enough to stay in the draft. And that way, when things have turned around, it's been kind of the roles reversed, where, Daniel's been like right on his tail and, kind of ready to attack there too. So with 12 minutes left, each of those little passes and attempts, they can become more and more significant. So you're really looking for any opportunity to get. It's kind of like, at the end of a football game or a close basketball game. Do you want to have possession of the ball last, or do you want to be defending at the time? So,
right. That looks like that played out much more awkwardly for Marty Jeffries, as he had to go side by side with the 42 of Jerry Mooresdorf going into Eau Rouge, and that's going to allow Favoroni to put or extend his gap over Jeffries as they head down towards Les Combs.
Yep, that was Jerry's a new. He was in the LMP last year, so he's in the faster class now, in the slowest class now, and unfortunately got a little bit out of the way in that battle there, which kind of broke it up a little bit, but. Things, hopefully there'll be enough time for those guys to get back together and have a kind of a grandstand finish for us. It's only about 1.5 seconds Marty's back there, so really not losing all that much time. There's John Kuzlin in the CTC racing car. We haven't seen him for a while. John's second place runner right now, all things shaking out. And I'm just going to run through the order here for all three classes, just bring it seat up at the top, but top three for each class. Colin McLean in the Daytona Prototypes about 50 seconds ahead of John Kuzlin, so well in hand there. Brian Carey about 5.5 seconds behind Kuzlin in third place. Then we have Chris Dameron Jr. leading James Mines by about 25 seconds in the Ford GT, with John Middleton a further 22 seconds behind James. Then Wyatt Foster 63 laps ahead of James Cullen, who's about 2.5 seconds ahead of Mark Payne right now. So that's actually that battle is for second place is definitely not decided yet.
I think it's worth noting too, Ryan Huff has moved up to 4th place in the GTs, or in the Cadillacs rather, from his 16th-ish starting spate.
Yeah, I think it was 18th actually early on in the race. I'm not sure exactly where he started, but he was well done. Very, very deep Cadillac field today. I believe there is 22 starters today, so that's a good turnout in a single class, but a multi-class pretty phenomenal. And for Ryan in particular, excellent run to bring that car up to a current 4th place right now.
Yeah, Ryan qualified in 15th position, and I think he's kind of fluctuated down to the 18th around the start, but then he's pulled it back up, and for him to get all the way from basically the back half of the field up to 4th place is, very impressive showing. And this is Marty Jeffries going to take a look on the right side of Daniel Quaroni, and as they go down to Les Combs, it looks like he's going to have the pass. And Quaroni thought about fighting back on that left-hander, but it kind of looks like Jeffries shut the door on him.
And also, just for for Anthony and for our viewers out there, a little French lesson: the S in Les Combs is silent.
Les Combs, not Les Combs.
The opposite corner not being more combs, so now that would be a difficult corner. That's one of the Don Hunter. Okay, that's a kind of hard to tell. Very, very similar paint schemes for the Can-Am racing cars there. I'm going to suggest to them for possibly for future they do a little something different on the top there to make it a little easier to pick out, because those cars above all else are the excellent paint schemes, but damn hard to figure out the difference. And like I was saying here, you know, looks like Jeffries had, you know, caught up and caught Caroni pretty quickly, but Caroni is pretty much right back on his tail, so let's see how this works out coming down to the finish here. All the way down here, like up to Blanchimont. I know you're going to have to slow down a little bit for the corner, but there's a lot of drafting happening right there, so especially in parts of the tracks, it looked like I know Dan had mentioned before that Marty was a little better through the corners, he was better on braking, and being able to be behind and to take the draft kind of takes the edge off, losing some time in the corners and getting down towards the end of one of the long straightaways, have a, you know, better than average chance of out-braking Marty at some point to retake that place. But 7.5 minutes left, we'll see how that goes. Yeah, just looking at the timing and scoring here, Mark Payne and James Cullen is probably the closest battle on the track besides this one right here. Actually, they're probably about equal, within about between half a second and a second pretty continuously, so we're following this one right now as we're coming up to traffic, so this could be Daniel's opportunity to get a run, because there's two cars here, and Marty probably won't be able to clear both of them by the time they get through the end of Lake Home here.
Yeah, depending on, because it looks like Jeffrey's going to be held up. Yeah, there's not really going to be room for Qualroni to get by as they go down into the turn 8 carousel. But
he's close enough, though. That's one of the things I noticed when you're lapping other cars is if you're close enough to the guy ahead of you, you just basically just do your best to stick right on his bumper going through the slower traffic, and I mean, not even give them the opportunity to turn down in the corner and be able to get through, no problem there. But problem gets when you get about 3/4 of a second behind, because you're close enough that you might be able to follow them through, but you're not 100% sure. And I mean, they might turn down, they might not, and it's really hard to judge. So Crony doing everything he could to clear the traffic as quickly as possible to keep in touch with Marty for this last 6-minute run to the flag here. Also want to point out too, I know no one's mentioned yet, but for those of you who are aware that Daniel does broadcast these races live on, well, I'll let you explain it because I forget the website.
It's twitch.tv/simracingdan. And all you need is Flash and a browser, and you can watch me do a camera behind me in the cockpit and try to do my best to do some commentary throughout the race as I drive it too.
Ooh. I'm just, I'd be very interested to see or listen to the commentary here, because I'm sure it's either extremely quiet as he's concentrating or extremely loud as he's actively describing this rather intense battle.
Well, I can tell you because I've seen it. It's actually quite good, and I definitely enjoy watching those videos. It's very interesting. I find it very interesting to watch from another driver's perspective, especially in a car that I'm not actually driving. And the way Dan's been able to see, for me, I cannot drive this. Of course, I cannot drive this Ford GT. I haven't put a whole lot of time into trying to drive it, but I could not get the hang of it. Oh, and Qualroni almost off into the wall over there as they head down the Kimmel Straight, and he's going to get separated from Jeffries by. Oh nope, he's going to make a nice pass going into Lake Holmes. Said it correctly that time.
Lake Home. The S's. With the S's. They don't exist.
Damn French. Anyway, so really not a whole lot of distance between them, and there's still 4 minutes left, which is going to be probably, depending on where the leader is, 2 or 3 laps left. So there's still time for Qualroni to make another pass on him. But I was just mentioning quickly about Dan's videos. It's he definitely has a very smooth style, and it's really fun to watch him race from his perspective. So check those out. They're a good watch.
I've also enjoyed them, but I still have no idea how Dan manages to drive and commentate at the same time. I couldn't do it.
I know, I couldn't either. That's why I'm so impressed by it.
I don't know. When you see some of the mistakes I made, it seems pretty obvious how I do it, which is not well. But, yeah.
As you can see, Mark Payne looks like he's trying his damnedest to catch up to James Cullen here, but James is able to keep the gap to him relatively stable. I know it's under a second, but doesn't look like Mark is pressuring him too badly there.
Yeah, it's been about this distance for the probably a good 10 minutes or so. We've kind of jumped back to this battle briefly as we continue to watch the battle between Quaroni and Jeffries, but we have the times we have jumped back to this battle, it seems to be about this distance. I think these guys are pretty much running the same pace right now, and there's not really much traffic to give either one of them an edge. Oh, except for Mark Payne doing a much better job negotiating the bus stop than Colin was able to, and he made up quite a bit of time through that corner.
But James got a much better exit coming off the corner there. Mark was much better through, James better off. So it's always a trade-off there. And again, as we say that he's down the inside of the source and a little bit closer here, but I notice it's out of Lake Holm and through the rest of the lap that looks like James has a little bit of a pull on him. This is another thing to remember, mental. Like, we're less than 2 minutes left of the race, which means we're, about a lap or two left. It's all depending on when McLean in the DP crosses the line. But mental toughness, racing this hard, this late in the race, it actually helps a little bit with focus. But you're so mentally drained as it's going on, and I know in positions like this past where I get that I'm not even thinking about anything. I'm just, you're doing your shifts unconsciously, you're doing everything unconsciously. You're just focusing, you're feeling where the car is and just focusing on the guy ahead of you and just doing as much as you can to try to catch him and gas him, and you end up almost running a little bit safer because you're not thinking about extraneous things that may cause you to get distracted and go off the track. It's just you and the car and the driver ahead of you, and it does help the focus. But after 2 hours of racing, this is pretty awesome to see these guys this close.
And I don't know if you caught it, but the white flag has been flown, so we are on the final lap for most of these guys. Some of these guys will have to complete their... Ooh! Mark Payne getting very close to the back of Cullen's Cadillac, but still no contact. You probably couldn't fit a piece of paper between those two cars. They were so close. But Mark Payne, seeing that the race is almost up, he's really turning the speed on now and trying to see if he can't get around James Cullen.
Because Mark right now, he is, 56 seconds ahead of Don Hunter in 4th place. So at this point of the race, he doesn't have a lot to lose and position to gain. As he's going down the inside, I don't know if he's going to be able to, James is going to be able to drive around. Oh, looks like James almost gave up on that a little too easily there. Oh no, hit. They're both hitting. What?
Mark Payne and James Cullen both messing up their pit strategies. They have to pit for a quick splash of fuel to be able to finish the race. Wow.
I don't know. Actually, I said Don Hunter was 58 seconds back, but that's a long pit lane. So he might throw in something condition. I know what the times are even for a quick splash, but you're going a long way very slowly at a part of the track where you're normally at pretty high speed. So ooh, I'm not looking forward to this.
Whee!
Everything's okay. Nothing to see there. And Colin McLean takes the win in the Daytona Prototypes. Good start of the season for him.
And he takes the win by a very large margin, close to a minute over John Kuzlin in 2nd place.
I'm just watching everyone come across the line here. So the race is over for a lot of these guys, but we're trying to get them in order. So there's Wyatt Foster taking the GT2 victory with James Cullen and Mark Payne second and third. So they've locked those places down. Dan Morera, solid race in fifth. Unfortunately, Ryan Huff not in the top 10. I'm not sure what happened there, but good, valiant effort for him, but didn't quite come up with the result he'd hoped for after that long race. So now finally officially, even though it was done earlier, John Kuzlin officially second, Brian Carey third, Mike Taylor with a very determined race to finish fourth, Chuck Chambliss fifth in the oh, that's Kenny, oh, classic backwards. Of Kenny.
Finishing the race backwards.
He drove the whole race backwards. But yeah, no, there's race over. I apologize not getting the complete results here. I believe Chris Damron Jr. is taking the win. He hasn't crossed
the line yet.
Oh, he has not? Okay.
No, I don't think he has. Everyone else, I think, finished ultimately a lap down, so hopefully Damron will finish in a moment, and then we'll see the Ford GT fill in.
Oh, and Anthony Mune is just taking sixth place for Tony Stahl. Okay,
Chris Damron Jr., the last over the line, but a lap ahead of everyone else, and that's where you see it. And here we've got our points already displaying, so let's run through them quickly. Colin McLean winning with 25 points, then John Kuzlin down 3, and Brian Carey was that. Anyway, on to Ford GT. Sorry, that went by too fast. Chris Damron Jr., should be with 25 points, so I think I have to correct that. But then James Bynes down, he'll be down 3 points. John Middleton will be down 5. And Wyatt Foster also should have 25 points. James Cullen down 3, Mark Payne down 5. And being the first race, you can see pretty much 2 points in between each driver as they finished from this race.
Just like to point out that Wyatt Foster, I think, finished about 2 minutes in front of second place in his class.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the exact gap is. Oh, and you can see a shorter season here, finishing up at Spot Franker Shops next May. Well, the dates are a little off there, but Silverstone, which we'll be broadcasting shortly, Daytona Road, also just completed a couple days ago, and we'll be getting to that shortly. Next race, though, after the Memorial Day weekend at Road Atlanta, Barber Motorsports. Sport, looking forward to it, and then the rest of the courses, well, coming up, obviously, but Road Atlanta will be back. We'll be racing in 2 weeks, but we'll be back on our broadcast with Silverstone at some point shortly.
Alright guys, well, I'm pretty happy with how that race went. Lots of action throughout the entire race. Really, never a dull moment. So, I think these classes, yeah, as Anthony said, really working out to give us a ton of close racing throughout the entire span of the race.
Yeah, it seems to be such a contrast from the last season. Probably by about with 50 minutes to go or so last season, it was pretty much everyone was where they were gonna finish, and we saw battles come down to, you know, the last couple laps. So we really saw some great action today, and there wasn't really, like Dan said, there wasn't really, as Damron decided to do his victory burnout, we didn't really see a dull moment in this race.
And not only that, but look at that list of finishers. 12 from the Cadillacs, 10 from the Ford GTs, and 8 from the Daytona Prototypes. That's really a great turnout for finishing.
And Chris is doing a marginally better job than Tim Stahl at burnouts, which isn't setting the bar very high.
Alright guys, any final thoughts before we sign off here?
Well, I just like the like we mentioned before, this car, these classes and the competitiveness of the series already shaping up to be a fantastic series. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this plays out, because really I have no idea who's going to do what in each series. I mean, Wyatt's obviously fast in the Cadillacs, but everyone else, I mean, it could go any which way.
Too true, too true. Well, we would, on behalf of ISRA League and Z1 Sim Wheel, I'd like to thank you for watching. If you'd like to race with us, check out israleague.com and join up. All we ask is that the drivers be clean. You don't have to be fast. And as mentioned, if you want to watch the races live from my view, twitch.tv/simracingdan. And I think that'll about wrap it up for this race. Thanks for watching, and see you again at Silverstone.